So welcome everybody to the January Civic Coffee event. These are monthly events that are hosted in partnership between Age Friendly Seattle and the Seattle Public Library. And this is our first of the year. So thank you for having us, Wallingford Senior Center. It's lovely to be here. Just a couple quick announcements before we get started. There are some books on the resource table here. Those have been provided by our friends at the library, and they are free. So if you would like to take a book home with you for keeps, not for checkout, you are welcome to. You can just talk to our library friends in the back. We do have other resources available. If you don't already have a gold card, be sure you pick one up if you're age 60 or older. It gives you access to discounts all around the city. And then finally, we have an opportunity if you would like to participate in a transportation survey. We've been working on a new transportation app to help people better find transportation options that meet their mobility needs. And we're now in a beta testing phase. So if you would like to be a beta tester, we would love your opinion. So you can check out info in the back.
Do you have to have a smartphone to do that?
Do you have to have a smartphone to be a tester? You'll need access to the internet. Well, it could be on a computer. Yeah, so a computer or a phone, some device with internet access. Okay, so with that, I will officially welcome us again. And I want to recognize that we are on the traditional lands of the Coast Salish people. And we really honor with gratitude both the land itself as well as those who have stewarded. If you'd like to learn more about the Duwamish people, we encourage you to check out realrentduwamish.org, I believe, where you can learn more about how you can support the local tribes here. I've already said thank you to Wallingford Senior Center, but really thank you again. We do love coming here, so big appreciation for you.
Thank you for coming.
Happy to be here. And with that, I'm Dinah Stevens. I'm the Age Friendly Program Manager, so I'm going to moderate this panel. But I have some pre-planned questions here, but also we really invite you to participate. So if you have questions along the way, feel free to raise your hand. This can be an informal conversation. We want to hear your thoughts and opinions too, so feel free to engage. And instead of reading bios, I'm actually going to invite our panelists to introduce themselves. They can do a much better job than I can. So we have Evelyn and JL here today with us. So I'm going to invite just Evelyn, since you're sitting right next to me. Please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and your organization.
Thank you very much, and thanks to everyone for having us here. My name is Evelyn Stagnaro. I'm a board-certified music therapist. I'm the founder and executive director of Life on Music, which is a private music therapy practice serving the Seattle area. And we're actually in Snohomish County a little bit as well. And we do music therapy and adaptive music lessons. So we do music therapy for folks across the lifespan. We also do adaptive music lessons for people who need extra help to learn an instrument. Everyone on my team is a board-certified music therapist. That means we have training in human development, behavior modification, and we have collegiate-level proficiencies in piano, voice, guitar, percussion, and most everyone on my team plays the ukulele as well, because why not? It's just too fun. So we love working with older adults to learn those instruments. We work with older adults in one-on-one settings, where we work on increasing quality of life, mood, cognitive skills, memory, even some physical functioning, which we'll get to talk about a little bit later. And we also do groups in facility as well. So when we're available, my team will go out to communities and assisted living facilities and work with older adults in group settings. So we're working on building those social skills, connecting people, building community. We're using music interventions to do them. So we're singing, we're dancing, we're playing instruments, and we're playing the music that you want to listen to. So we do jazz, we do classic rock, we do folk, we do gospel. So it's not all going to be the electronic pop you hear on the radio anymore. It's going to be the good music. So thank you again for having me.
Hi everyone, I'm JL Weinberg, and I am an art therapist and a licensed mental health counselor. And I have two practices. I have my private therapy practice, which is called Art Therapy PNW, like Pacific Northwest. And through that practice, I do individual therapy sessions with people of all ages. And then for my work with older adults and the dementia population, I have a business called the Creative Dementia Collective that I run with two business partners, Kaylee Allen and Erin Noble. And we work with people living with dementia and also their care partners and families and support systems. So we go out and run groups in senior living communities. Kaylee runs music therapy groups, and I run art therapy groups and poetry therapy groups. And then I also run support groups for family members and loved ones of people living with dementia. And then Erin is our dementia educator. She's a certified independent trainer through Teepa Snow, who is a dementia educator. If you don't know about Teepa Snow, I highly recommend checking her out, watching her videos online. And so we support people living with dementia and also their families, loved ones, and support systems. And we do some of that work in person in the Seattle area, but we also work virtually with people all across the country.
Great, well thank you both for being here. Oh, did I go off? No, I'm still here. We've been really looking forward to this conversation about creative therapies. It's January and a lot of us might be thinking about how to get healthy, take care of our own physical and mental health. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. So, yeah, I'm a little in and out. I think we might share. Okay. I think we can go that way. Okay. So I'm gonna get some distance. Okay, is this better? Yes. All right. So as I was saying, this is a great time to think about all the different ways that we can take care of ourselves, our bodies and our minds. And we're really happy to be introducing you all and ourselves, we're learning too, to some of the creative ways to do that. So, Evelyn, I'm going to start with you. So what does music therapy with older adults look like? Can you just walk us through what that entails? And specifically, how does it help older adults with varying cognitive impairments or dementia?
Absolutely. So music therapy session typically starts with a formal evaluation. So we'll take the first couple weeks and get to know you, and get to know your music preferences, what instruments or music activities you're interested in using in your time during music therapy. And we're going to complete a formal assessment. And after that period, we'll make a plan of care with recommendations for goals. And we love getting input on this from the people who are participating in therapy and caregivers and other healthcare professionals. We often work really closely with other members of a medical team, like occupational therapists, speech therapists, physical therapists. And we love integrating those goals into our work in music therapy. Then the fun starts. So then we start with some active music making, and we're systematically working towards those goals. So for someone who has Alzheimer's, dementia, or another cognitive impairment, oftentimes this can be using a song to remind yourself of some memories and think about some short-term recall or long-term recall, remember some points in time. We can do some songwriting as well, some things that are creative. And in group settings, we typically start by asking some questions, seeing if the song can remind you of some places or things that you've done in the past, and start building connections that way.
So I just have a follow-up because I've heard, and I don't know if this is true, but maybe you can tell us, that the part of our brain that stores music is the last place where we might lose our memory functions. Is that the case?
Thank you for bringing that up. This is one of my favorite things about music. Musical memories can actually be stored anywhere in the brain. And that is why music memories are preserved when some other parts of memory sometimes are not. And this is absolutely what music therapists do when they're working with people. We can sort of hijack the brain in that way and use music to promote activities of daily living, memory recall, cognitive skills. Because when parts of the brain are damaged or not working correctly, music can actually be preserved and actually build networks around damaged or parts that are not working the way they used to.
Thank you. So JL, can you tell us a little bit more about the goals, the practices of art therapy? So kind of the same question, like what does art therapy look like and how is it therapeutic?
Yeah, so music, I'm so happy to be on this panel, and I love multidisciplinary conversations like this because music and art therapy have so much overlap, and they can fit for different people in different ways, and someone could do music and art therapy and get different benefits from both. Some people feel more musically inclined, some people feel more visually creative inclined, and that's why, you know, these alternative therapies in all of these different, you know, domains, we need more of that because then we can meet more people, right? And so for art therapy, I think most people have heard like, oh, art is so therapeutic, right? And that is true. The creative process is healing in and of itself. It has that as kind of an intrinsic property. But to do art therapy means that you are doing therapy with a licensed clinician who is an art therapist. So if you're looking to find an art therapist, they're going to have the letters ATR or ATR-BC. That means registered art therapist, but they changed the letters because then it would spell rat. And so instead of having rat behind all of our names, it's ATR, right? Art therapist registered. So every art therapist who is an ATR or ATR-BC is a master's level clinician, which means that we go through the same training that like a marriage and family therapist would go through, or a licensed clinical social worker, a therapist that you would find, you know, substance abuse counselor, things like that. And so art therapy is working with a therapist who helps you and engages with you through the creative process. If you think about more traditional talk therapy, you go see a therapist and you talk about what's going on. In art therapy, you process through what's going on through the artwork and the creative process. Sometimes that involves talking, sometimes there's no talking. But the two main things we think about in the art therapy kind of experience are process and product. Right? The thing I hear most often when I sit down to do art therapy with someone is, unless they sought me out on purpose, but usually I hear, oh, I'm not an artist. I can't do art. I can't even draw a stick figure. And I say, well, you're in luck because you don't have to be an artist or be able to draw stick figures to do art therapy. But the process is the actual making of the artwork, right? You're drawing, you're sculpting, you're painting, you're making a collage. That's the process. The product is the physical thing, right? I made a painting, I made a drawing. And sometimes the product is important because it can help people feel like they have made a mark, they've created something, they have something to look back on, right? A document of an experience they had. Other times, the process is all we're doing. We are engaging in the process and it doesn't matter what the result is. That is, a lot of children do process-based art, not in art therapy, but that's just how they do it, right? Finger painting or drawing, and then they don't care what happens to it. Sometimes we process through experiences that don't need to be saved, but getting rid of them after we've expressed them out is actually part of the healing process. So engaging in the creative, expressive process in the kind of safe, trusted company of a therapist is what art therapy is at its core.
And it sounds like it's, did you have a question? Or something? Okay.
You said jigsaw puzzles.
Oh, jigsaw puzzles, yes, that's my chosen form of therapy as well. So it sounds like it can be any medium, whether that's drawing, sculpting, music. There's a range of types of mediums people might do in art therapy.
Yes, so there's kind of this umbrella, the creative arts therapy umbrella or the expressive therapies umbrella, and that includes music therapy, art therapy, dance movement therapy, narrative writing therapy, poetry therapy. They all live under this umbrella, and they have different types of practitioners and different reasons you might use them, but art therapy specifically, typically like a master's art therapy program, you're going to be trained in the visual arts like sculpting, painting, drawing, collage, things like that. But in my work, I also do poetry therapy groups and expressive writing as well. So it's very flexible, but a traditional art therapy training is more in the visual arts world. Yeah.
So I mentioned that, a lot of us might be thinking about our physical health these days. I know the gym by my house is busier than it ever is this month. What are some of the physical health benefits of music therapy?
So music therapy is really multimodal. Exactly, I see some people already imagining some of the physical benefits. And the effects of music on physical health is full body as well. I'll start with singing. Singing can support breath support, even articulation, and keep those expressive communication skills at the level that we want them. Like you were just alluding to, playing a piano really works as fine motor skills, and you need those skills for tasks like holding a pencil, tying your shoes, eating. All those skills transfer directly to those real life tasks. Music therapy can also involve movement and some gross motor movement. So these are things like getting in and out of a chair or going up and down the stairs. All these things that we want to maintain the highest quality of living that we can. So in music therapy, a music therapist can design music interventions that use those, that work towards those goals in a really systematic way. So for example, maybe you can think of being in a physical therapy session and a physical therapist might ask you, a physical therapist might ask you to, I have a loud voice, I can just might feel to just shout. Might ask you to, for example, just move your arm a couple times just to strengthen those muscles. In music therapy, now imagine you're holding a drumstick. Your music therapist is holding a drum. Instead of just counting to 10, now you're playing the drum to your favorite song ever. And one of the things we've noticed in music therapy, and even our close colleagues in physical therapy will even say when we get a chance to do a session together, oh my gosh, my client participated for so much longer than they ever have. Oh my gosh, my patient was smiling while they were doing this exercise, and I've never seen them do that. And they think I'm just the most magical person, in the world, and it's because they're right. It's just so much more fun than a lot of traditional approaches.
Traditional approaches to what?
Traditional approaches to therapy.
Therapy,
yes.
For whatever purpose a person goes to therapy for.
That's right, yeah. So if I'm thinking about physical therapy or music to address physical goals, yes, to rehab or maintain skills related to gross motor movement. So strengthening, endurance, goals like that.
In the course of your training, do you bring up the scientific terms then for the various things that people are working?
We do have training in anatomy, so we actually, as part of the coursework to become a music therapist, you do take training in anatomy, so that you can speak the same language as a speech therapist, a physical therapist, or an occupational therapist.
Most of those people, as therapists, when they're communicating with the subject, are not bringing up the technical information. They're being very superficial, very simple.
Yeah, and it kind of depends on the client. We have some clients who are okay saying, just tell me what to do, I want my body to feel good, and if you say this is going to help, I'm good with that. And we have more clients who say, I like more information, I want to understand what's happening with my body, can you please explain exactly what muscle group is being affected, exactly how this is going to help strengthen this, I want to be able to get up and down the stairs on my own or get in and out of a chair without pain. How is this exactly working on that? And we can, especially if we get a chance to collaborate very closely. For example, have a team meeting with your whole medical team. So if we can sit down with your physical therapist and as a music therapist and you, it helps us really understand how we can very specifically target those things.
I think it's important to clarify that you don't know exactly how. Because if you think about the neural network of the brain, there is so much space that can be expanded out to. And you don't have the technical expertise to understand it.
Absolutely. There's a lot about music in the brain that we don't understand. The brain is a very complicated place, and there's a lot we don't know.
Our words, knowing what we communicate.
Absolutely.
I have more. Can you all hear me if I just project? Did you have another question?
So I go to physical therapy, so we asked her to come and then she helps my physical therapist?
Yeah, actually, I wanted to follow up on that too. So can you talk us through how you, and maybe this is a question for both of you, how you might work with the rest of their care team, whether that's a physical therapist, an occupational therapist, a primary care physician, what does that look like?
So I'll tell you, most of the time, we see clients on their own without another therapist there. So most of the time, it would be an additional visit during your week where you would spend time with me or a music therapist on my team, and we would work with you on your goals using music. Sometimes we do have the opportunity to go in your session with the physical therapist and treat right alongside your other therapist. So that is an option depending on how open your medical team is to that.
Do you want to add anything, Jaya?
Yeah, it's very similar in art therapy as well. Usually people will come see us as a separate practitioner, as a part of a larger care team. But I always love collaborating with other doctors and therapists, physical therapists or other therapists on someone's team so that we can make sure we're treating the whole person, right? And getting to everything that needs to be addressed. And a way that happens sometimes concurrently, like you were saying, is medical art therapy is a very popular practice where art therapists work inpatient or on-site in a hospital. And so people who are going through surgeries, who are needing long-term care, children who have to spend long time periods in the hospital, they have an art therapist on staff that works as a team and goes to meetings every day with their physicians and nurses and physical therapists, but usually in an outpatient setting, they see us individually.
So if someone were interested in doing this kind of multidisciplinary connection, would a good first step be to ask their existing physician or therapist, hey, I'm interested in bringing art therapy in as part of my practice. Are you open to that?
Yeah, I think, if you have a provider that you trust, asking them for recommendations is a great place to start. If you're a little more of a self-starter, go-getter, Google's your friend. And if you find someone and say, hey, I think this person might be able to help me, would you be open to talking with them? I'd like to start seeing them. Can I sign a release of information so you can coordinate my care? We can do that as well. So if you don't know where to start, asking a trusted provider can be a great way to get your foot in the door. But if you find someone that you like and you think might work for you, you can tell your other doctors, hey, I think this would be helpful. I want you to connect with them.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so does Medicare cover some of it? I got Medicare and Blue Cross.
Unfortunately, music therapy is not covered.
Can I stop you 1 sec? I just want to repeat the question so everyone can hear it. Good question about insurance coverage. Does Medicare cover these therapies, or what is it like with different types of insurance coverage?
Thank you. Music therapy is not in network with Medicare. There are some Medicare waivers that we do participate in. So it's worth asking if you have a case manager or reaching out to your insurance to see if there is a program that includes music therapy. And me and my team are trained to help you with that. We get that normal people are not experts in insurance, and it's always, a pain in the butt to navigate. So me and my team are more than happy to help you reach out to your insurance company to explore options. That being said, we also offer some discounts for out-of-pocket payers. So if it turns out that your insurance does not cover music therapy, we do offer discounts in that instance.
Some people are normal, and they do know something about insurance.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. We're here to help if you need help, and if not, that's awesome.
Do you provide those services at the individual's home?
Sometimes. Most of the time at Life on Music, we work out of our clinic, which is about 10 minutes up the road from here in Maple Leaf. But when my team has availability, we love going in-home with folks. We get this is a lot easier.
You say 10 minutes. Well, that's if one is...
That's driving, yeah, if one's able to drive.
From where?
From here. From here.
From here.
Yes.
And it actually, from here, it would actually take more time than that because getting from this one spot, getting out to the parking lot, getting from there, all that. So actually it's more than 10 minutes. And there's cost to that. Can you understand, is it possible that given the amounts that a person would pay, a person might be well off to buy an instrument or buy art supplies and have the comfort of one's own home to do that in, rather than running the risk of being on the roadway with all those vehicles and people who are not very attentive to the fine details of driving?
I absolutely can.
Say, I could get there 10 minutes easier.
I absolutely can't understand why it's not possible for someone to drive, and you're not alone in it being inconvenient to drive. And we do offer virtual sessions, so if you're much more comfortable at home and it doesn't work out that my team can see you in your home, we can work out something virtual. And you're right, oftentimes having an instrument at home and having art supplies at home is a good fit for people. You don't always need a board-certified music therapist or a registered art therapist to use these modalities therapeutically.
I see we have a question from you, and
what is your fee schedule?
That's a good question. I don't have it off the top of my head. I'm not going to lie to you. But if you come find me after, I can give that to you.
And I also just wanted to point out, I know JL also offers online virtual classes because mobility can be a challenge, right? It's not always easy to get around.
Yes, I offer my entire private therapy practice is virtual currently. And then for the Creative Dementia Collective, I run some groups in person, but we can also do things virtually if people either don't live close by or have mobility issues and can't or don't want to leave their homes. And as an art therapist, because of our licensure structure, many art therapists do take insurance. Some take Medicare or, like Apple Health, things like that. Some are paneled with private insurance carriers. I'm currently paneled with Primera, the Primera umbrella and the Regents umbrella as an art therapist, but there are many different art therapists in the region who take all different kinds of insurance. Yeah.
So it sounds like if you're thinking this is something you're interested in, worth asking your insurance plan, hey, do you cover art therapy?
Yeah.
There's a good chance your answer will be yes, and they can give you a list of who would be in your network.
Yeah. You can do that, and if you find an art therapist through Google or someone's recommended to you, you can call your insurance carrier and give them the name of the person and ask what percentage of this service would you cover for this particular therapist as well.
That's great. So a lot of traditional talk therapy is often about learning how to communicate better and express yourself better. Can you, JL, talk us through what are some of the ways that art therapy can also empower people to be more self-expressive and to communicate?
Yeah, so that's kind of the center, the core of art therapy is how to support someone in expressing themselves, their authenticity, things that have been maybe stuck inside for a long time and haven't found a way to come out yet. And the beauty of art is that it is about as deeply human as one can get. And if you think about, the earliest evidence of human civilization, hundreds of thousands of years ago, they made marks, like they painted on cave walls. They took ochre and used their fingers or some utensil and painted scenes where they lived in those caves, right, to document experiences. And the same with music too, right? They sang songs, they vocalized, they expressed, they created chants to connect. And so using the creative arts therapies or expressive therapies is a way that every single human being can connect to something that is innate with all of us. Like, that's why I say you don't have to be a good artist to do art therapy. We all have the capacity to create through art or through the creative process. And with visual arts in particular, what makes them pretty special in terms of self-expression is that it doesn't have to be connected to time or order, right? So if we're telling a story using language, that requires order. We use grammar. You have to put the words in the right order to communicate what you want to communicate effectively. Art does not require that. You can communicate something all at once in a picture, right? If you've ever gone to a museum and looked at a painting that almost stopped you, it took your breath away because it made you feel something all at once, that's really the power that art has. And so specifically for older adults or people living with dementia, language can be hard. Time can be warped. We might have had something inside of us that we have never talked about, and we're 80 years old and we've never expressed this out to another person, and putting it into words can feel too vulnerable. And so art gives us a little bit of a bridge to share something that really deserves to be expressed in the world, but in a way that works for you. And I think that regardless of the modality, whether it's dance or music or poetry or visual arts, like I said, connecting to that deeply human part of us that just wants to share our experience and take whatever's in here and put it out there for someone else to connect with is like, I don't know, for me that's like the whole deal of being a human, you know?
That's very beautiful. So speaking of kind of how connected we can be to art, I'm thinking about how cultural music can be, and that includes, you know, across generations. The music that my parents resonates with my parents might be different than what resonates with me, or a generation younger. Also across cultures. And so, can you tell us, Evelyn, a little bit about how you approach cultural inclusivity in your work? What that looks like?
This is such an important question. Music therapists are trained to learn and use the music that our clients want to use and learn. In fact, the research shows that the best outcomes occur when we're using patient-preferred music. So that's what a music therapist does. So I have learned songs in Spanish and Ukrainian and other songs because that's the music my client wanted to listen to. I'll admit, English is my only language, but I love learning music across cultures. And there are music therapists out there who are bilingual, so if you're interested in having a music therapist that deeply understands your specific culture or language, there are some folks out there, and I have a pretty big network, so if you're looking for someone specifically, you're welcome to reach out to me, and I would love to connect you as best I can.
Cool. And does that include, beyond language, like different instruments and kind of tones and melodies?
Absolutely. So we're sort of limited to the instruments that we can either fit in our car or that we have in our clinic, but we do have a wide variety of instruments that are accessible to the folks in our clinic. So we have hand drums, we have guitars, we have ukuleles, we have I couldn't even name you all the instruments and things we have. So a lot of the fun can just be kind of looking around the clinic and just seeing what the possibilities are. And if you have a specific instrument that you're wanting to learn, it's possible for a music therapist to kind of pre-learn that for you and think of simple ways to teach that to you. So that's definitely something we could do.
Jael, how do you engage different family members or caregivers in the art therapy that you do?
Yeah, so engaging with someone's care community is one of my favorite parts of the work that I do. I feel so passionately about it. And if you go on our Creative Dementia Collective website, we have a whole page of podcasts that we have been guests on. So if you'd like to hear me talk for literal hours about these topics that I'm super excited about, there's a place to do that, you know. So just FYI. But the way that I like to connect in not just family members, although oftentimes it is family members of someone living with dementia, whether it's a spouse or an adult child or a sibling or something like that. Sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's people that they've known throughout their life or are part of their community. But doing dementia care alone is near impossible. It is almost impossible to single-handedly care for another person living with dementia through to end of life all by yourself. And it shouldn't be that way. Like, community care and connecting to lots of different areas of support is how, in my opinion, it ought to be. And so the way that I ground that work in my practice is through something called legacy work. And legacy work is the idea that people deserve to be able to tell the story of who they are and who they have been in their life and have that preserved and shared with the people that matter to them. Some people have very expansive desires for their legacy work, right? You see people who put their names on buildings that they've donated for, and that's going to be there for hundreds of years, or, you know, have a statue of them in a public park that, you know, you're like, I don't even know who that guy is, but I know I'll meet you at the statue, right? That's part of someone's legacy. But for other people, it's small and intimate. It matters to me that, you know, somebody who comes and sits on this bench in my neighborhood that I lived in my whole life sees a heart that I drew on the corner, or that my grandchildren know that I wasn't just a business guy. I loved horses and I cared for them, and like that is something that people in my workplace would never know about me. So legacy work is how we do that. And for what is most important to me about legacy work is that for people living with dementia, sometimes their agency gets taken away and their story gets told about them to them. But when that happens by their friends and family, it's a story from one direction, right? Imagine if your whole story was told about you by your child. They would only have the lens of you of parent, right? And maybe a little extra on the sides, but it would be kind of one-dimensional. So through our legacy work, we try to bring in as much community, as much family and friends as we can, so we can get all these different aspects of who a person is. And sometimes the therapy is sharing that story back to them, right? We have a photo album. One example is a client we worked with through the Creative Dementia Collective was a Vegas showgirl for many years. And that was something she was so proud of. She loved still putting on her heels, and this photo book we created of her time in these Vegas shows would light her up. And sometimes she would forget that that was part of her life, but then when we showed her this book, hey, remember, you did this professionally for years, and she'd be like, that's why my feet hurt. I'm like, yeah. You wore heels professionally, 8 shows a week for 10 years. Of course your feet hurt, And so it's things like that where bringing in the family and friends and community can give us the most rounded view of an individual to make sure that they can stay a whole person all the way through end of life and don't get reduced to, the sick old person. That's such a old, tired, lens of our society that we are trying really hard to kind of fight back about.
I love that example that you shared of how this can spark memories for people. So I'm wondering if each of you can share a couple more examples of the impact that these kinds of therapies have made on people's lives.
Sure. So one of the clients we're working on right now is in his 80s and has dementia and survived a stroke back in the fall. So his daughter reached out to us for services because, he's always wanted to learn guitar, and he's also in some other therapies to rehabilitate from his stroke, and she thought music might be an interesting way to work on all of those things. So he comes to our clinic once a week for guitar lessons, and it turns out we have uncovered a hidden country star on top of everything. So not only is he sitting up in a chair for an hour, relaying stories from his past in a beautiful 12 bars blues, but he's sitting with the guitar, he's using his brain to coordinate his fingers with one hand, to strum in the other hand, two completely different things with each hand, while he's recalling all these stories of his past and putting them into these original songs. So I think our work with him is such a good example of how music therapy can really work on the whole person. He's working on his physical goals, his cognitive skills, his expression, but he also has a bit of self in this as well. This is self-expressive, this is art for him, and it's also legacy at the same time. Now his children will have these songs that he wrote about his life story as he told them in exactly the way he likes it told. So that is the story I'd like to bring today.
Yeah, I have two kind of short stories, one for an individual and one for a group. And the story that came to mind for an individual was a woman that I worked with. I used to work as a full-time art therapist at a memory care community. And there was a woman there who was a professional artist throughout her life. And before I was there, they had some art programming, but she didn't really have a lot of access to visual arts, kind of regularly. And after we'd worked together for maybe a year, there was one day where she was a very tiny woman in a wheelchair and had a big personality and these big glasses, but kind of would get overlooked a little bit. I think not really asked how she was feeling very often. And one day she came into the art therapy room and I said, hey, how are you doing? And she said, I'm not good. And I was like, you're not good? And I was like, what's going on? And she was like, the world, it's too much. It's too heavy. And I was like, yup, that's correct. And I said, what do you want to do about it? And she said, I need paper. And I said, okay. So I gave her paper and we had watercolors on the table, and she covered this whole paper, like saturated it with like blue, or I mean really like muddy, dark, full covered, like dripping off the side of the paper. And she finished it and she scooted, she goes, more! And I said, okay. I slid another paper in, painted more and more. She said, another one! And I said, okay. And we did that maybe 5 times. And then finally she finished her last one, she goes, oh, that's better. And I was like, yes. And so that's such a great example of like it was just paint on a paper, but there was something inside that felt dark and heavy and muddy, and she needed to get it out, and nobody had asked her what was going on, and then the paper was a place for her to hold that. And so that's just one of my favorite moments as an art therapist. It was such a beautiful moment. And then in a group that I run a poetry therapy group for people living with dementia. And that group I run using the agricultural calendar. So every group is connected to the part of the year that we're in. Because knowing the date doesn't matter, but connecting to the cycle of the seasons absolutely matters. And it doesn't matter if you think you're in 1957 or 2024, it's spring, it's spring, it's spring, right? And so we wrote a year's worth of poems collectively that kind of touched on each little subsection of the seasons, and that is now a collection, a book of poetry of 1 year of this group. And they have that as a legacy object for that group in that period of time, talking about their experiences related to every part of the cycle of the year.
Are there any misconceptions or myths about art therapy and music therapy that you want to debunk?
So many.
Yeah. We can have a whole other panel on just that, I think.
That's exactly what I was going to say. You know, I think I just want to take this time to kind of distinguish between music teachers and entertainers. So a lot of people like to work with music teachers to learn an instrument or learn to sing so that you can perform on stage or perform for your friends, and that's awesome. Music therapy is different. Even though we teach instruments and we teach singing and we teach songwriting, it's typically focused on something under the surface. So the goal of performing an instrument is secondary to a goal related to wellness. And entertainers are really just there to make sure everyone has a good time. And while in music therapy, that's absolutely a high priority for us as well, we are typically really focused on your individualized goals and your wellness. And so the biggest difference between music teachers and entertainers is that a music therapist will set individualized goals and document progress on those goals and update you on that progress throughout the session plan.
Can you give us an example of what some of those goals might be?
Absolutely. So oftentimes it could be, we talked about some physical goals, so it could be to sit in a chair independently for an hour. Maybe it could be to recall a certain number of events in your life, or to maintain your speech expressive language skills. It's really, yeah, music therapy spans a wide scope of practice, but those I would say for older adults and older adults in memory care with dementia, Alzheimer's, they're often related to this. One more to add, now that I think about it, we often do goals related to mood, and so sometimes it can just be, you know, just lifting your mood or leaving in better spirits than you arrived. So that's a big one I want to make sure to mention.
Yeah, and I touched on it a little bit before. The point about music teachers or art teachers, they have a very important role in our communities, and that is a different thing than using the arts for therapeutic purposes, right? And so sometimes my role as an art therapist, there's this idea in art therapy of being the third hand, right? If someone is using their 2 hands to try to make something and can't quite get it to where it needs to be, we can be the third hand that supports and assists. Like if someone's trying to express something using a painting or building something or sculpting something and the materials aren't allowing them to do that, sometimes I use my education as an artist to help them do that, but I'm not teaching them how to paint a nice picture, right? And that leads to this misconception that I already mentioned of how often I hear people say, I'm not a good artist. I can't do art therapy because I'm not good at making art. And that is so far from being true. And I think that it I experience that a lot with older adults. I don't know in 50 years when kids that are in school now are maybe needing art therapy, if they will have the same reaction. But I have clients who don't know what year it is, have extreme memory loss, but they can remember and tell me that their 3rd grade art teacher told them that they were bad at painting. And those memories get stuck so deep within us, and it makes me feel really sad that people have kept themselves from creative expression out of fear or because they were told that they're not good at it. I actually have a whole lecture that I have given before on bad artists and how there's punctuated through kind of all of modern art. The people that made the turn in what was considered fine art were, when they started making their art, seen as bad. Like the whole art community in Europe was like, that guy sucks. His art is ugly. And then now they have wings in museums that are dedicated to their work. And so I think that it would be so much more devastating to not create at all out of fear than to make something that your eyes don't find pleasing. Like, life is not always pleasing. And so some of the things we make to express about life are gonna look gross, because life is sometimes gross, and like letting it be bad is part of the work,
So in our last few minutes, I'm wondering if each of you can just share some logistics about how to find you, how to access your programs, what that might look like for folks. We talked about insurance coverage, but anything else people could be aware of so that they can get connected to the types of services you offer?
Sure, thanks. The best way to reach us is to shoot us an email. In case you have a pencil, I know. We have a phone number too. There's lots of ways. Yes, we absolutely do phone calls. I'm old-fashioned. I'm happy to pick up the phone and chat with folks. If you have a pencil pen, I'm happy to give that to you now. Our phone number, there's also business cards and brochures on the table, so come find me after. And just on the insurance note, just to say, we're absolutely willing to work with you on insurance. We have discounts for out-of-pocket rates, and we can bill out-of-network sometimes as well. So I have lots more information of that if you guys are interested. So come find me after, or find a brochure or a business card.
And just to recap, your main office is in Maple Leaf?
That's right, our main clinic is located in Maple Leaf, and if you're interested in in-home or in-facility services, absolutely reach out to us as well.
Great.
If you would like to get in contact with me directly, I also have a business card on the table. Our website, the Creative Dementia Collective, is the hub for, we also have access to music therapy services, dementia education, and art therapy. We run groups out in the community as well, so staying in contact with us, we can let you know if we're like, hey, we're going to be running this group at the Senior Center, or we're going to be doing this free event that's here. We can let people know if you sign up for our mailing list on our website, and also phone calls. We take phone calls and do old school on the phone as well, and can help connect you with people. But our website is the best way to reach us. Yeah.
So nice that people still take phone calls.
Yeah.
Do you go to Monroe? The city, that way?
Yeah, we could. We don't have any programs that are there right now, but if someone were utilizing our services and wanted some in-home sessions, that is a place that we could access.
And then just lastly, is there anything you would like to leave us with today? So Evelyn, we'll start with you.
Just an extra thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be here and talk about music therapy, and I hope to be hearing from you all very soon.
Yeah, thank you for being here and showing up and letting me talk so freely. I know I can have a little bit of like a blunt style, but I feel so passionately about the work that I do, and sharing about this and talking to people about creativity and helping them be the most authentic versions of themselves is the core of what I work for in life. And so I feel really grateful that I was reached out to be here to speak, and let's bring more alternative therapies to our communities, because we deserve it, right?
Well, you both have been just a joy to talk to, so thank you, and thank you for your work you do. It's really interesting and really inspiring to learn about, so thank you.
Thanks, Diana.
Yeah, and thank all of you for being